What's up, everyone? It's Rena from Imply, and I'm here to bring you stories from developers doing cool things with real-time data, analytics applications, and of course, Apache Druid. Today, we are diving into the world of customer-facing analytics applications. So these types of data products are helping customers deliver insights to their customers on what's going on with their customers and users. And to do that, they need to be backed by a database that can handle lots of data and lots of concurrent users without sacrificing things like performance or query speed. One of those customers is Atlassian, which provides collaboration, development, and issue tracking software for all kinds of teams. And so today I am joined by Darren Briskman, Director of Technology at Imply, who will break down what you need to build a customer-facing analytics application, and Julian Kalfian, Software Engineer at the Confluence Big Data Platform team at Atlassian, who will talk us through what they built and how they did it. Julian, Darren, welcome to the show. Before I let you guys take the wheel, just a quick note for our audience. We'll have a Q&A at the end. So thanks to everybody who sent me in questions ahead of time. However, if you have questions during the presentation, you can feel free to ask them right in the chat, and we'll have experts that can help you out right there. All right, Darren, take the wheel.
I will. So hi, I'm Darren Briskman. I'm Director of Technology here at Imply, and with me is...
Julian. I am a full stack software engineer on the Confluence Big Data Platform team, delivering a lot of insights for Confluence, leveraging Druid and Imply as the servicer.
So what Atlassian is doing with Confluence and the analytics that Julian's going to take us on a quick deep dive to, I guess a medium dive, but
Yeah,
is
I guess.
something like that, is a good example of a data product. So let's do a little definitions here. What is a data product? Well, it's something that is providing insights, sometimes automated decision making, but it's delivering useful insights on data either to humans or machines or both. So that could be real-time operations about what's happening right now. It could be context-aware decisions of being able to combine real-time and historical events and being able to say not just what's happening now, but what's happening now and how does that relate to what happened a month ago or a year ago or last time the reInvent conference was happening and we had a bunch of hits or whatever is appropriate. And then also interactive conversations, being able to explore rapidly large amounts of data and be able to get answers about what's in it. And these are just three examples. There's lots of other things. Ultimately, the data product is anything that you are doing, whether it's for your own internal teams or for your customers, that is a product that is driven by data, that is ultimately using and repackaging data. So there's a lot of that out there. So to be really confusing, one example is Confluent, and another example is Atlassian Confluence. So Julian, that never gets confused, right?
Oh, I confused it when I first joined Atlassian. I thought it was the same thing for a second, and then I realized it was two completely different things. So funny you bring that up.
There you go. And the third one is Thousand Eyes, which nobody ever confuses with these other two. But so Confluent, if you're not familiar with them, they are leaders in, they're a company that was founded by the people who created Apache Kafka, and they are leaders in Kafka as a service, and recently have added Flink and some other things. And what we're looking at there is an animation of what's called Health Plus. So if you're a Confluent customer, this is where you can go to get real-time analytics on what's happening in your environment, because many of their customers are running thousands, tens of thousands or more Kafka topics, and which are active, which are not, which are working, which topics has nobody touched in 6 months, and maybe they shouldn't be paying for, and so on. Atlassian, of course, we're going to talk in more depth later, so I won't dive into it now. Thousand Eyes is another great example. They're now part of Cisco, and this is about getting people real-time information about what's happening in their network. So whether it's physical network applications or other things. So the idea is like having 1,000 eyes looking at your network environment. And what all of these have in common, as we'll talk about soon, is you need to be able to do sub-second analytics at scale. Because if you're going to be bouncing around and looking at stuff, you can't be waiting 20 seconds or a minute for each query to come back. But they also need high concurrency, because when you're exposing this out, well, I'll pick on Julian at Atlassian. How do you know how many people are going to be using the Atlassian analytics at any given time?
That's the thing, we really don't know. And we've had issues in the past that we've just recently figured out ways to get around when it comes to when everyone is logging on at the same time, right? Because Confluence tends to be used by employees of companies. So At 9 in the morning, we tend to see peak traffic, and we see that in every single different region.
Right. So sometimes that's predictable, but you really
Hmm.
don't know, like in the next minute, will you have one customer or 10,000 customers all trying to hit this? So we need to have high concurrency. And then another thing that we need to be able to do is combine the real-time and historical data, right? What's happening now, but is that high? Is that low? And then the other thing that's kind of buried under here is you need systems that don't go down. You have no tolerance. You don't know when customers want to use this, so you have no tolerance for planned downtime. And of course, unplanned downtime is always bad. So, some things people do with this. So, operational visibility at scale. So it's not always to external customers. New York Stock Exchange, for example, is using this for real-time monitoring of network activity looking for malicious attacks. Because as you might imagine, the New York Stock Exchange gets attacked a lot because they have a lot of money. So this gives an ability to, in less than a second, detect and mitigate potential threats, whether it's fraud or DDoS attacks or other things. External facing analytics is what we're using as a bunch of examples today. So yet another company doing that is Citrix, which again, Citrix customers can see what's happening in their virtual environments. Another big use of this is just I'm looking at a lot of data. So Salesforce is not exposing this to Salesforce customers. This is for rapid data exploration for Salesforce employees. But Salesforce is pretty big. They got a lot of people, and they don't know how many of them need to do this at any given time. So we still have concurrency issues. And then I wanted to mention one example of one that's more machine to machine, which is real-time decisioning, where Reddit is using these kind of data products to place real-time ads. So it's both data exploration. So if you're someone who's thinking, I want to place an ad on Reddit, to let you explore and say which subreddits have people who would be interested in what I'm looking at. So let's say, for example, I want to reach Java developers who live in Los Angeles. All right, well, one subset of that is, say, r/Java dev, and they can tell you how many of those are in the Southern Cal area. But then you might want to look at, I don't know, r/Los Angeles or LA Rams or LA Dodgers, to make a better example, and say how many of the people in the LA Dodgers subreddit are Java developers. So these are things that they can explore, but then the real-time decisioning comes up when you say, okay, I want to place an ad that hits people like this. How do they get that in front of the people which are relevant? Because in this case, you might be advertising a LA area, a Los Angeles area Java convention, and you want to make sure you hit Java developers in that area. So if you know anything about advertising, right, you've got 300 milliseconds, sometimes less, to decide what to place and put it there. And as we all know from people who use the internet, an ad that is relevant to you is interesting and fun, and an ad that isn't relevant to you is irritating. So you don't want to place ads to people that will irritate. So what's driving all of this? Well, one is streaming. Streaming is everywhere, right? This should not be new to anybody. So we've got streams coming in from databases and applications and devices and other stuff, and then it goes into a streaming platform. So the most popular streaming platform by far is Kafka. And then there's also a bunch of things that are based on Kafka APIs that technically might not be Kafka. So that includes stuff like Confluent and Confluent Cloud, companies like Red Panda, services like Amazon Managed Service for Kafka, and then also Amazon Kinesis, which actually is a little bit older than Kafka and is a competing platform for sending streams. Another one I've seen increasingly recently is Pulsar over Kafka, so from Stream Native, but yet another way to do it. Julian, what do you use? Is it all Kafka, or are you using one of these other services?
We actually don't use Kafka at all. With us being on AWS for most of our infrastructure, we actually use Amazon Kinesis internally.
Okay, cool. And that works too. And they
Oh
look
yeah.
very similar. But it's interesting that if you look at if you look at all the data created in the world, about half of it is actually medical. It's a lot of like MRIs and CAT scans. And if you look half of what the non-medical, about half of that is video. It's streams, but it's not data streams. It's streams like TikTok and YouTube and Disney Plus. So of that remaining 20 odd percent, that's the high value data, right? That's the data that's everything from semi-structured things like emails to highly structured things like data flows and transactional systems. And today, about 20% of that is actually streaming. And we're seeing that number rise really quickly. So we're seeing streaming has gone from a niche solution, like, if you know about Kafka, it was originally developed for use at LinkedIn, or the original Kinesis, which was for passing messages around microservices at Amazon.com. And it's now developed into something very commonly used everywhere. But if you're sending this to a batch system, it's not real time anymore. So there's a lot of databases that say, yeah, we have a stream connector, whether that's something like Apache Spark or things based on Spark like Databricks, or whether it's databases like, say, Oracle, or many others, that when you connect to the stream, you're not really getting a stream. What you're getting is a micro batch. It'll take in streams for a period of time and then batch it in. But that's creating latency and delay. So if we're going to be doing analytics on streams, we need a database that streams. So every event gets ingested and you can query it immediately. And then you have these other pieces. So if I'm doing real-time analytics for a data product, I need a real-time analytics database. So that means sub-second queries at any scale. So it could be terabytes, it could be petabytes, it could be a lot more, but we need to make sure that we're running that stuff at sub-second, because little things like, the animation showing here, every time you drill in on something, that's not just one SQL query. That's usually, like right now, that's like 15 SQL queries triggering off. And if you're not going to just want to look at a spinning wheel of death, you need those queries to all execute sub-second. We also need high concurrency. Now, technically, any database can be high concurrency if you throw enough money at it. I can always create enough clones of something. But the key is I want it to be high concurrency without having to spend, 100x the cost of the basic database. I also need that database to give me both the real-time and historical insights. So both show me what's happening now and relate it to fixed or arbitrary points in the past. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I want nonstop reliability. I want it something that doesn't go down.
Yeah, actually, speaking about that,
Yeah.
those actually are a lot of the main reasons why we even went with Druid at Atlassian for Confluence Insights. Previously we were using Postgres, so the sub-second queries at any scale, that's a big thing for us. We need to have things be fast to perform, what users are looking for them for their experiences to be like. And then the high concurrency, right? When you have 9 o'clock in the morning spurts of people all logging on at the same time and seeing the home experience of Confluence, and a lot of that, some of those things are powered by our service. We need to have high concurrency allowed, so as many users on there, no matter how many it is, they are going to get the same beautiful experience regardless. And then obviously with the real time, we need to have this data be as soon to the user performing that action as possible to really provide beautiful experiences that give actionable insights to users about discoverability of pages and content within Confluence overall.
Yeah. So you're not going to hear, anyone at Imply say bad things about Postgres. Postgres is awesome, but it's not a real-time analytics database, right? That's
Right.
not what it's for. Our friends at Thousand Eyes, they started a MongoDB, which is also awesome, and it was a great way for them to develop their prototype. But they had the same thing. Once they, with one customer, it's great. With 10 customers, it was okay. With 50 customers, it wasn't scaling. So, these are the things we need and that you need if you're going to be building data products. On the other hand, if you want to build, an inventory system for a slow-moving e-commerce store, Postgres is a great choice. And Atlassian, you also use a lot of Postgres, right?
Oh yeah, we do. It's just for real-time insights and any of that, with high concurrency, you're not going to be looking to use Postgres. Druid is obviously highly, recommended.
And of course, that takes us to Druid. So high-performance real-time analytics database has been in open source now since 2013. Became Apache license right when that actually became an option around 2015. And shortly thereafter became one of those top-level projects. So if you're not familiar with that, in the world of Apache licensing, anyone can release software with an Apache license. And there's literally hundreds of thousands, about 200,000 projects out there with an Apache license. But there's only a couple of dozen that are actually managed by the Apache Software Foundation. So those are the ones that are most widely used, like Apache Web Server, Spark, Zookeeper, Hadoop, and Druid. So Druid is a high-performance real-time analytics database. It gives us all those things that we were looking at. And then I work for Imply, which is a company that is helping deal with these use cases, operational visibility, rapid data exploration, external facing analytics, real-time decisioning. Um, Imply was created by or founded by the creators of Apache Druid in order to make Druid more accessible. So with Imply, you can just use open source. If you want to use open source Druid, go to apache.druid.org, download it and get going. If you want to see how to do that, go to imply.io and look for a blog called Wow, That Was Easy, which just shows how to do the open source. But if you choose to use Imply, then you get a commercial distribution. So, we'll make sure that all the bug fixes and things are there and ready to go, and all preset for you on Kubernetes or native, bare metal Linux or whatever you prefer. Some extra security. We also have a fully managed choice, something called Polaris, which is fully managed Druid on the cloud, as well as some hybrid manage options that let you manage some, us manage some, depending on how you want to do it. Hybrid manage is great, for example, for people who run at Amazon and say, I want your help to run this, but I want all of my data in my VPC under my security control. So, okay, you can do that. And of course, the tools to make it easy to manage and easy to monitor performance and expertise, right? The open source is fantastic. We support open source. Let me make this clear. We don't believe that Druid should have like a crippled open source version and then a good version you have to pay for. The open source version of Druid is fantastic and fully functional. But one of the downsides of open source is it's not working. You put a message in a forum and hope somebody answers you. If you're an Imply customer, you actually have someone who's paid to answer you, and you'll get 24/7 support, and if necessary, escalated right up to the people who write the code and who manage that. So, for example, at Imply, our Chief Technology Officer is a great guy named Gian Merlino, who is also the chair of the PMC for Apache Druid. So we make sure that we're there to support people across the community of using Druid. And on top of
Actually,
that,
we
go
speaking a
ahead.
little bit about that with the effortless operations and the committer expertise. It's actually a big reason why we chose to go with Imply, because I mean, just a little bit of a data point. Our team and even the data platform above us at Atlassian, we tend to create a ticket with Imply, probably 1 to 2 tickets a week, just asking questions about things we could optimize, asking questions about things we could possibly, fix, or even just exploration questions. So they're always there to help us, which has been really amazing. And to talk a little bit about the cloud deployment, we're actually on hybrid managed, so everything is within our own VPC at Atlassian. But some of the other stuff is we get help from Imply when it comes to the cluster management and whatnot.
Right, and that's a good point. When we say, support, that doesn't just mean it's broke, come fix it for me, right?
hmm
It's how do I do this, or am I doing this the best way?
Yep,
And
exactly. And we've gotten a lot of help there for sure, especially over the last couple months.
and hey, at Imply, we're all Druid nerds. We love this stuff. This is it certainly makes my day when I get to help somebody solve an interesting problem. And then, at the top of the stack, people write their own UIs. They use tools like Tableau. They use the graphics I was showing earlier is something called Pivot, or Polaris visualization. So, part of this whole stack of using Apache Druid and being able with Imply to have the complete experience. So,
Yeah, Clarity has been completely amazing, to be honest. It's been a way we've been able to like really dig into things. So Clarity, amazing product.
right. So Clarity is where it says performance monitoring. That's the tool that Imply provides to both give you better insight on how your Druid clusters are running and give our tech support. So if you do have a break fix problem or even optimization problem, you don't have to waste like 3 days shipping us logs. We already know what's happening, and as long as you give us permission to look at it, and then we can. So Clarity is great. I presume you also use Imply Manager, right, to just deploy and manage your cluster?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we use that. We touch it just about once a week or so, or at least take a look at it. So it's been a really big help with ensuring configurations and scale is what we're looking for within the cluster manager.
There we go. And then we're also committed to making sure that this runs where you want to run it. So Atlassian's running it on Amazon Web Services. Many of our customers use AWS, many use Google Cloud, many use Azure. There's still more than a few who run it on premise that for some technical or regulatory reason, they can't run it in the cloud. And so some of those are people who are, say, in defense and intelligence. But another example is our friends at New York Stock Exchange, which you mentioned earlier, that the U.S. financial regulators say, we think you're too important to run in the cloud. So they can't run their tier one trading in the cloud. They run like the penny stock exchanges in the cloud, but they can't run the tier one, the main stock exchange. So, hey, we're happy to run on premise. So whatever makes sense. Although Atlassian, I suspect you're all in the cloud, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we do have some products that are not on the cloud, and we're working on moving some of those users over to the cloud as much as possible. But for Confluence Insights specifically, it's 100% cloud.
So what is Confluence Insights?
So Confluence Insights, and if you go to the next slide, our main purpose here in Confluence Insights is increasing the discoverability and engagement of content within the Confluence platform. So that means if you're creating pages, if you're creating blogs, if you're creating even other content types that might come in the future, we're able to increase the discoverability of your pages or the pages of your teammates, which allow for just better engagement overall across the whole company within, the wiki that you have for all the information you need, all in a single place.
So do you actually have like very small employees who hide behind your customers' computer screens as shown in this picture?
Yeah, we actually do. This is the way we do a lot of our infrastructure and our architecture at Atlassian. But we try not to share that information. Quite proprietary.
Okay, we're kidding. They're not actual Oompa Loompas at Atlassian. So I don't know. They are Australian, but no, we're not going there. Okay,
Scalability would not be great with that.
that is a lot of work. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So how does deliver on its purpose? So tell us
Yeah.
about what we're looking at here.
We're able to deliver on engagement, discoverability of content within Atlassian using Confluence Insights by some of the experiences you see every day. On the home experience, which most users tend to be at, the following feed, where if you follow a specific teammate or a specific space within Confluence, you see the content that has changed on there, including comments or likes or reactions. And then even the popular feed, which allows you to see what's going on in your whole company overall and what's popular. What are people reacting to recently? Like all these things are completely powered by Druid, and there's even more information of like different experiences that we power if you go on to the next slide.
Sure. So, but this is really cool because if you're using Confluence, and hi, if you're a developer, you're probably using Atlassian, you're probably using
hmm
Confluence. You're using these data products, and you probably don't even know it. It's just invisible. It's just there, right? The
Yeah,
home
Druid
screen.
doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be, analytics, charts, and graphs. Sometimes it can just be something that you wouldn't even know is powered by Druid, which in these two experiences are powered by Druid, but you wouldn't even know unless you are developing it itself, like the people on my team.
Right. And if you're a developer using, Confluence, you want to know what you're following and what's popular. This makes it a more useful tool. You don't have to put these things in people's faces. The ideal data product, or a lot of ideal data products, are kind of invisible.
Exactly, and even
But,
some
but
more
this
of
is
our stuff.
but here's an example that wouldn't automatically
Mhm.
pop up, right? This is something that somebody would actually go actively look at what's my space, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If they go to instance analytics, in some case spaces analytics, if you have the permissions, and even analytics of the own content that you create or your teammates create, this right here gives you all the insights you could possibly want about that content, the tenant, the company itself, and then the space overall to figure out what's most popular within that space. So who are the most active readers that you could talk to? Who is the most active contributors that might know a lot of information of what you're looking for, and even just overall insights and engagement within your page, blog, or whatever the content may be.
So so
Yeah,
some of that is in a page, right? And then some of that is across pages or across your whole site, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and in some cases you can, which a lot of users actually tend to look at, is how many people have viewed my page. Obviously, if you're creating content, no one is looking at it, then you probably shouldn't be writing it. That's a complete honesty, right? So it's the question then becomes, how can I write this in a better way, or how can I put it in a better place where discoverability will be better, so I can get more views, right? And the way you understand that is how many views did my page get overall, unique viewers or views overall. So that in-page analytics experience, also provided by Druid, allows us to surface that to users.
And we've all been there that when you have like intranet or wikis or whatever, you publish stuff up and then you go, is anybody ever reading this?
Exactly.
And then if you're the one reading the wiki, you've got, is this current? Or am I
hmm
reading something that's like 4 years old? And with Confluence now, with these real-time analytics, you have the tools to answer those questions, whether you're the publisher or the reader.
Right,
Uh,
exactly. And then on top of that, you might want to, you're doing some work, you forgot what pages you were recently looking at, you don't remember where they are, and now you can go to recently viewed within the search experience, also powered by Druid, that recently viewed experience in there, which provides you with the information on what were you recently looking at, that allows you to understand, like, because we've all had that experience before, right? Where we go through a rabbit hole of information and we forget where we are overall and where we were. And this allows you to understand where was I and how can I go back to it.
Oh God, I do that all the time. That I'm on Confluence. I'm reading that. Okay, that looks good. Let me write some code, and then like 4 hours later, the code is compiling, and it's where the heck was I?
Exactly. I mean, I do that all the time too, to be fair. So I use a lot of these products or these features that within Confluence we use ourselves every single day as engineers or even as employees, even at Atlassian ourselves.
All
But yeah,
right.
go ahead to the next slide.
So yeah, so tell us about so here you're what are you actually doing in Druid, and you've got a lot of really interesting queries here.
Yeah, for sure. So these are just like a subset of the many queries that we have within our service. But overall, we deliver these experiences using a mix of query types to deliver on the promise of low latency and high reliability for all of these beautiful experiences you see across the product, powered by Confluence Insights. Below, you can see some examples of that. That is the list order by timestamp, which allows you to see specific actions that happen on content based on timestamp, and we do top in for that. Max event timestamp, like what was the latest for something that happened within this page, blog, whatever it may be, also using top in as the Druid query type. And we even go further with list pages group by key. That can be list pages, list the specific pages grouped by the specific user that has touched it or has viewed it. All these things all powered by these different query types are grouped by in Druid. Same thing for list users. And then we even have time series that should show a little bit of the flexibleness that we have with using Druid query types. We have total count time series, which allows us to see the total count of like some certain actions within a specific content type. And that uses a time series Druid query type overall.
So when you say low latency, are these sub-second? Are they how quick
Oh
are they
yeah.
executing for you?
Yeah. I'll actually be touching that upon a little bit later, but it is we our SLO that we have internally is 500 milliseconds for any Druid query.
And okay, and then I'll mention on the reliability side. Have you Is this something that's always up?
Yeah, I mean, for us, what we have noticed overall, we're able to keep reliability of receiving good responses from Druid to about 99.995%, which four nines and a half, which is pretty great. And we are supposed to be delivering an SLO of about three nines and a half, but we deliver way above that every single time, quarter over quarter, just because of the amazing scalability of Druid.
Right. So without getting into great detail here, Druid is designed that when something breaks, and I didn't say if because hardware always
Mhm.
fails eventually, right? So when something breaks, Druid just works around it and keeps running. So like, EC2 instances on AWS are great, but any given EC2 instance is about a 99.5 uptime. And I'm
Yep.
sure, Julian, you've had many examples of EC2 instances failing, but it doesn't
Oh,
take
yeah.
down your cluster. Everything keeps running.
Yeah, 100%. In the high configurability of Druid itself, where you can send configurations at each specific node level allows for a lot of, customization to ensure it works for your specific, work type that you're doing within your service, which we do a lot of within our team.
Yep. And so removing nodes, adding nodes, scale up, scale down, those are all dynamic. You can do it whenever you need to, which is really handy, especially when you have, workloads that aren't always completely predictable.
Yeah, that's the thing with Druid, right? That we always talk about is, at, at least within my team, is something that works for one person might not be perfect for another, right? Something that works for one team might not be perfect for another team. So sometimes the way you scale and the way you configure these clusters tend to be very different. So figuring out what works for your team to make it as scalable and as highly configurable to handle the workload that you're looking for is imperative in ensuring you understand that completely before really diving deep and then trying to use a one size fits all for everything. Because that with Druid, that doesn't tend to be the best way of going about it from what we've experienced at least.
Right. Well, I mean, look, anybody here who's ever worked with developers know that one size fits all really means one size fits one guy, and everyone else complains.
Exactly.
So, um, So we get it. So let me throw you under the event bus. So what's going on here? How do you get the data in here?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously to be able to power these experiences, we need to have the data, right? So the way we get this data overall is anytime you might view a page or you create a page or you react on a page, that actually triggers an analytic event, which is the event producer. And then we have an event bus, which internally we call Stream Hub, that actually delivers those events to the places they need to be. So we can register the specific topics for the event bus and get that data from it to for data that we actually care about, and the ones that we don't care about, we literally just leave there, and anyone else can listen to those events. We then service that through Kinesis, which is then ingested on the Druid side from Kinesis streams directly. And we have some more complicated stuff in between, but for the sake of brevity, this is the overall like high level picture of the way our infrastructure works for the data delivery to Druid.
So wait a minute. Every time somebody clicks, that generates an event? You've got like millions of users. How many events are we talking about?
We overall, when we add up all the events across all the clusters, we see about 1 million events a minute that we're able to ingest into Druid, which has been pretty performant, and that side of things has always done great for us, and we've never had a problem on that side of things. The things that tends to be a little trickier is dealing with high concurrency and understanding how to scale and configure to handle that within Druid.
Okay. So now we get some numbers. So you said it's fast.
Yeah. So these experiences, right? We obviously, if we're going to provide them, we want them to be the best for the customers, right? So it tends to be fast for us. We have 500 milliseconds of 99th percentile SLO for the Druid latency. Keep in mind, this is only for the queries to Druid. We have other stuff that happens within the stack of stuff that happens within the internet that we need to call to figure out permissions and whatnot. But for Druid itself, we need to have an SLO of at most 500 milliseconds in the 99th percentile.
Yeah. And that's probably worth like just mentioning as a tangent, right? Druid's an engine. It's not a solution. It's part of a solution.
Right,
But
exactly.
you're always no application is going to be just Druid. You're always going to have other elements, security, visualization, other stuff that has to be part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And even when we add all the other stuff on top of it, every query is still sub-second for us. So that's why we tend to look for 500 milliseconds as that North Star for what we look for when it comes to latency in Druid. That allows everything else on top of to still allow us to have sub-second requests for users and seeing the popular feed and seeing how many views they got on a page, right? We want to see that as fast as possible. So this tends to help us with that. Now, to reliability, like you've talked about a little bit, Darren, for us, I already touched on this a little bit, but we have 99.995% of uptime. And by uptime, I mean queries that come to Druid that get a successful response. And that has been doing amazing for us because that's higher than we actually look for internally for our SLOs, for our teams that use our service. We're looking for 3 nines and a half, and we're always delivering on way more above that.
So let's define it because 99.995, that's about 20 minutes a year. So your
Yep.
downtime is less than 20 minutes a year.
Yeah, and technically that's not even 20%. That's not even it's not even 20 minutes a year that it's down. It's a specific number of queries that actually fail out of the millions and millions of queries that we have overall. So downtime we really don't even have overall for Druid. We haven't experienced that whatsoever, which has been truly, truly amazing.
All right, and that's cool, and that's the right way to measure uptime because I don't care if the cluster's running or not. I care if my customers are able to use the app. That's
Exactly.
what really matters.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then concurrency, right? When we have the 9 a.m. burst of users logging on at the same time and seeing the home experience and loading up their popular feeds, loading up their following feeds, going to pages, looking at the views that the page has gotten. These things need to be very concurrent. And with Druid, we've been able to reach a high level of concurrency. Recently with our rescaling that we've done, where we've tested it to be able to have about 800 requests per second at once. And obviously, as our service grows and usability of our platform grows with it, we'll obviously rescale and reconfigure to reach even higher levels of concurrency than this. But this is what we're at right now at this time.
Cool. All right. Well, that was awesome. So, and as somebody who uses Confluence as a developer, it's awesome. It's really useful. Indeed, before we had this talk, I didn't realize that these were Druid-driven features back there. They were just, hey, whenever I use Confluence, I can see what other people are looking at, and I can get analytics, and I can, most usefully for me, find what I was looking at before.
Right, exactly. And
So
I feel like that's so powerful for users overall. We've heard great things about the usability of our features, and even some people internally don't realize that, for example, the popular feed or the following feed are powered by our team, and leverage Druid in the background. And sometimes it's more beautiful, right, to have these things be in the background because we want the user to just worry about the experience and not what's the engine underneath, right? We want that Ferrari, but you don't have to worry if it's a V12 or a V8.
yeah, and for me, it's more like an Uber. I don't. I just want to call and get from A to B, and I don't care what model of car it is, as long as I get there and get there
Exactly.
safely. So, so those of you who, if you're on our live stream, you can, if you haven't already, feel free to throw in some questions, and we can answer those live. If you're watching this on a recording, hey, there's our email addresses. Feel free to send us any messages. I don't want to speak for Julian, but I'll answer any questions. Julian, any reason people shouldn't send you a question?
No, send me a message. I love talking about Druid, so I talk about it almost every day here within my team and within Atlassian, trying to get more people to use it. So yeah, send me a message. Love to talk.
All right.
Well, actually, speaking of that, hi, I'm back again.
Hi,
We had a
Lena.
couple questions come in prior to recording that I just wanted to ask you guys if you have a couple minutes to answer them.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, sounds great. So, Julian, one question for you. What information is being retained on Druid for you guys?
Yeah, for the most part, as of right now, it's behavioral information, including like a reaction to a page, a search that you perform. It could be range from even if you viewed a page or performed an action on a page, commented, added a label to a page. These kind of things are what we use to power all these experiences that we have. But that use the as new use cases come through, we will begin to ingest even other events. This is just a small subset of events we have at Atlassian that we're able to use, and we will likely begin using more in the future.
Well, that gives me a question. How long do you store it? Do you keep this like 30 days, 90 days, forever?
So that it depends on a specific set of rules, right? If we're talking about like if a tenant or a customer leaves Atlassian, we have a certain amount of time that we can keep that data for until we delete it, which we have systems for to handle to ensure we're compliant. But in the sense of any data that contains UGC or user generated content, we only keep it up to a year and then we drop anything before that. All the other ones we keep historically. So ever since we onboarded onto Druid and loaded all the data in there and backfilled it, we have data backdating to like October of 2018. So we reached 5 years just this month of data that's currently in Druid for
So,
some of those events.
so you never need to purge it for technical reasons, but sometimes you need to purge it for regulatory reasons or privacy reasons.
Exactly. Exactly, just for compliancy. But other than that, yeah, it tends to handle pretty well with the amount of data that we have in there.
Cool.
All right, Darren, this is for you. How is Druid different from other databases that deal with real-time data ingestion? It doesn't list specifics, but I know there's a number in the market like Apache Pivot, I'm sorry, Apache Pinot, and then ClickHouse. How would you say Druid is different in terms of some of the other data products out there or databases out there?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned there, while we believe Druid is the best of the real-time analytics databases, it's certainly not the only one, and there's certainly many that exist. Some of them have that same sort of true stream ingestion, like we were talking about with Druid. If you take a look at Apache Pinot, is kind of like Druid's precocious and slightly annoying younger cousin. So it does a lot of things that are similar to Druid, although not exactly the same. But it's another option if you want to look at true stream ingestion and things there. ClickHouse is a Russian set of technologies that is open source. It's all micro batching. So it's not real-time analytics is not really its focus, although some people will use it that way. And then the ClickHouse engine is used by a whole lot of other products that use it because it is very fast. So it does let you do sub-second queries quickly, but it's not really that true stream ingestion. But I've got to say, the need for true stream ingestion is becoming more common, and we're seeing, totally different areas like Snowflake, which is, that's not about real time. That's about, batch reports. But they've started to do true stream ingestion as well, because sometimes people want that on a dashboard. So I think, Druid was a leader here, but over the next few years, we'll probably see that kind of being able to ingest streams everywhere. Of course, Druid can also ingest batches and files because sometimes that's how your data arrives. So we pull those together. At Atlassian, is it all stream, or are you ever pulling batch files into your Confluence Insights?
For Confluence Insight specifically, we don't do batch, unless we're backfilling data from what we call Socrates, which is the data lake that we have for historical data. But other than that, we don't do batch ingestion. It's simple stream. But there is other teams at Atlassian that are using Druid that are using batch ingestion.
So you called it Socrates. So when you ask it a question, does it ask you a question back?
Sometimes you think that because it is very fun to use, I would say. You tend to ask yourself a lot more questions than when you originally came with when you tend to use it. No, I'm just
There
kidding.
you go.
Socrates engineers are going to kill me for saying that. It's
Well,
actually, it's still we get
that's a
the
good
data.
thing. Yeah, and I'm poking at you with this to illustrate also, while Druid and real-time analytics are great, I don't think we have a single customer who only does real-time analytics. There's other
Right.
analytics you need to do. So if you're going to be doing real-time analytics, it doesn't mean you're replacing your data lake, your data warehouse, or your other data exploration environments. It means you're creating this environment to be able to deal with the data that you need to do in, sub-second high concurrency and streams. But you still need to run, correct me if I'm wrong here, Julian, but someone at Atlassian still needs to run like the daily sales report or the weekly, cash flow reports. And
Right.
that kind of stuff I could do in Druid, but it's probably better done by more traditional data warehouses and data lakes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Socrates is for us. And we're, like I said, our team specifically uses that to backfill data. So if a new use case comes up where we want to figure out how long a user stays on a page, which we don't have currently, we would want some of that information for the past after we start real-time ingestion, right? We want to know how long users are staying on a page in 2019, maybe. So we actually go to Socrates, the data lake, and grab that data and do batch ingestion into Druid to have that historical information for the past.
And this gets a little bit technical, but one of the really cool things about Druid is what's called schema auto detection. So if the stuff in the stream changes, right? So the Kinesis streams at Atlassian, for example, they start collecting a new piece of data. It just automatically populates in the table. So what happens to all the old things? Well, initially they show up as nulls, and then if you have that data, you can backfill it in later.
I will point out that that is a new feature that was released in, what was it, Druid 26. So if you're on an older version, you might not see that, so you should upgrade.
That's true. Or you should use Imply, where we help make sure that you have the current features.
All right, Julian, one more question for you, and this is actually from me because we've had a couple discussions. What are some best practices for getting started with Druid? Adopting a new open source technology, even if you have help from Imply, can sometimes be a struggle. What advice do you have for developers getting started with Druid?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great question. For us, from what we noticed when it comes to, implementing with Druid and even the rollout in the beginning when we first migrated from Postgres, the big thing is understand your workload. Understand what data you're trying to get, the concurrency that you're looking for, and overall what is the latencies you're looking for. These like numbers can sometimes be hard to figure out, but doing that due diligence prior will help you very much with understanding what your scale needs to be, what your configurations needs to be, even what information you need to retain within Druid to ensure you can power these experiences that you're looking to have. So I think that's the great rule of thumb is figuring out the latency you're looking for, the concurrency you're looking for, and overall what's the workload and experience you're trying to power to figure out the queries and data you need to ingest to deliver that.
Awesome. Well, I think we are just about out of time. This was a fantastic discussion, guys. Darren, Julian, thank you again for doing this and walking us through it. If you have questions, their emails are up there, but you can also visit imply.io to get more information. Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right.